Hi, welcome everybody to Let's Talk ICT. And today we are talking about how to create an accessible PowerPoint file. We'll be demonstrating in the version 2019, but a lot of what we're talking about today can be used in later versions of 2016. Today is going to be a combination of looking at a PowerPoint as well as watching me do a demonstration in a PowerPoint file. What's important to know is that we are talking about creating an accessible PowerPoint file from scratch. So what we're doing is building in structure. I'm going to take you into what's called the backstage of a file to know a few things to do to set up accessibility there. We will look at how to set up structure and navigation in your file by using titles, by setting up everything layout wise in the slide master. And a bonus to that is that it's going to be a time saver for you, reducing the amount of time you have to go slide by slide to make them have the same font size, for example, or same font type or same color. We'll also talk about some of the built-in tools that PowerPoint has. A selection pane is one example that's different than other Microsoft software products. It will confirm the reading order for a PowerPoint slide. Assistive technology that's used for an individual that's blind is a software version is called a screen reader. That software, when it connects with PowerPoint, actually reads the reading order of each slide differently than if a person of vision is looking at it. A person with vision will read the slide information from top to bottom. Now this screen reader will read it from bottom to top. So the selection pane helps us make sure that the reading order is proper for assistive technology. We'll also talk about how to make the content in a PowerPoint file and on the slides accessible content. So that means anything that's inserted or pasted and copied onto a slide, if it's seen as an image, will need alternative text, and I'll show you how that's done. We'll talk about hyperlinks and the importance of making that an active clickable link, and how to make sure that it's a meaningful description so that someone knows where the link is taking them to if the screen reader is announcing that information. We'll talk a little bit about color and the use of that and the contrast importance. And then we'll talk about font size. Font size is important for low vision individuals. A PowerPoint presentation can also be done in person or virtually. And so the size of the font is important. The type of font that you choose is also important for some types of disabilities. As you scroll through the font choices, you'll see the different artistic flares that each one of them have. If the font is tight and there's not a lot of space between letters, that can be a challenge for some types of disabilities that are learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and even depression. That may slow them down from comprehending what your content is saying. It could also discourage some from continuing on reading the information. So font that you pick should be open and also have space on the slide. And then finally, we'll talk about videos. If you are using videos in a PowerPoint presentation, they have to be captioned, whether it's something that's shown through connecting through the internet. That video that's being shown has to be captioned at that source you're showing it from. But PowerPoint allows you now to do that with the newer versions of the software. So today I'll demonstrate briefly the function of how that happens when you connect a captioned time-stepped caption file to the video. Microsoft has built-in tools for accessibility in PowerPoint. The accessibility checker, which is common for all of the other types of softwares in Microsoft's suite, is also in PowerPoint. However, I've noticed that it's a lot more sophisticated and perhaps maybe more accurate. So depending on the accessibility checker in PowerPoint, there's a comfort level there. So it does pick up errors. It does also offer tips. If you tap on the slide that it's mentioning, it should take you to that active location if you're not on that slide. So that's a nice feature about that. And the newer versions of PowerPoint will also have a little right drop down arrow that you can select on that, and it will give you choices. You can enter the alt text by clicking that on a lot easier. So it gets more and more sophisticated as new versions come out. The selection pane is also something in PowerPoint that I mentioned briefly that is different than the other software options in Microsoft. And it allows you to move the content reading order on a slide if you've made adjustments to it. You can also hide pieces on a slide if from visual view. That's what the eye icon is. If you tap on the little eye, it will hide it. And then, of course, the alt text pane. This is what that looks like on the far right-hand corner. It allows you to type in a couple of sentences worth of a description. Now, alt text should be meaningful. It should have everything to do with why that image or that item is being inserted into that slide. So when you make a description of it using alt text, make sure that it connects the pieces for someone that can't see the picture. Using color in PowerPoint is what's fun about PowerPoint. You can have, if you have a creative flair, that's one of the fun parts about being able to design something that's unique and different and stands out. But for individuals that have trouble with color, whether it's low vision, color blindness, those things need to be considered when you are using color in PowerPoint. There is web standards for ratios of contrast. There, it's 4:1 is the standard. And so if you are someone that is managing a website, or you're creating this file that will eventually go up onto a website, you do want to be careful to make sure that that ratio is honored. So I'm providing here the color contrast analyzer option through the Paseo group. If you go to that website, and there's a short link there that you can copy down and write into and type into your browser. This is a downloadable option that you can keep on your computer, and it tells you the pass or fail rating and the ratio breakdown. Now, if it's just a quick reference you need, the image here shows columns and rows of a background and foreground color combinations, and then very quickly it says, is it good or poor? And so this is a nice little quick reference to use for making choices on color for the slide and then also the font. All right, so let's do a little demonstration. I'm going to unshare this one, and I'm going to now go into a blank PowerPoint file. So as if you were to start from scratch creating your PowerPoint, this is how I want to walk through the demonstration. The first thing that you need to know is you'll want to open up the File tab and go in the Backstage of your file. That's what this is called, in the Backstage. And in the Info option, there's a section for Properties. Here you would actually title your file. And this is a section that's discoverable if it is posted up on a website. This is what would actually be visible on the website link, but also what the assistive technology screen reader software would read. So create something that can be discovered. For this, I'm just going to create a quick little title for the purpose of our demonstration. You can also do other things. You can add tags here if you want your PowerPoint slideshow to be discovered. If it's up on the website, you can add tags there that would connect people to do that. You would also check who the author is if you want to have it consistent with other things that are discovered about your agency or your business, or if you're an individual. The email that you use is what that's grabbing through what was connected to the installation of the software, the Microsoft software. So here it's already set up to say Missouri Assistive Technology. So that's what I like, is a representation of what I would want to be discovered. The last piece that I would talk about on accessibility in the Backstage is what language are you writing your PowerPoint in, because that language will be picked up by the screen reading software if it knows what the language is. And it makes a difference if it's going to pronounce certain words in different languages. So let me click on the more and then options. And what pops up on the left-hand side is a list of other options to look at, and we're going to select language. And here it tells me right away that English has already been selected for my language preference. And so since I am typing this in English, that is perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So those pieces that are important for accessibility in the backstage are done. And it takes me right back to the file. So now the next step is to create the design of the file. And how we do that, one, I would recommend that you think through what your slideshow is going to look like. Are you going to have sections where there's some similar layouts that you're going to use over and over again? Do you want them to stand out with a different color than other slides that are in your slide deck? Think through some of those first, because the next piece that I'm going to show you will be a time saver so that you can design those in one step versus having to do that for each single slide. What we're going to do is go into the View tab, and in the ribbon there's Master Views. You're going to select of those three things that are shown, the Slide Master. On the left-hand side, we have all of the layouts of possible slides showing. In the Slide Master view, this is where you can make any kind of modifications that you want to, and also ensure the accessibility of the slides. So here I'm on the Slide Master. This is the main office theme for this one. As I scroll to the left and I'm hovering over the layout, it tells me the title of that type of layout. And this is what you would see when you go in to create your file and pick a new slide. That would be the title that you'd be seeing. So here, for example, is a 2 content layout, like a side-by-side. Here would be a comparison that would be side-by-side with a little subheading on top of each of those and so forth. There's quite a few of them down here, but for this purpose, we're just going to look at a couple of them to make changes. The first thing is you can control the theme that you use for the design. And Microsoft has some pre-made for you. If you select these, you have a pretty good chance of them being accessible because Microsoft has already considered those. You can use some discernment to make sure that the contrast is sharp between the background and the font size, font type. But for the most part, they should be pretty good. I'm going to select the second one. Now you can change the color of the themes. On the background section of the ribbon gives you choices. I'm going to select colors. And although right now it's green, I think I'm going to change that to blue. And I like that. Now you can see all of the slides, the different layouts on the left have adopted that design theme. We can also make some changes to the font. Click on that, and so automatically it's selected one type. And if I wanted to change that, you can see as you scroll down that it's changing to the different font types as you're scrolling down. I'm going to select Arial, and automatically all the other slide layouts on the left adopt that same font. What's also interesting to note, if you're considering for low vision needs for accessibility, we want to keep the font size large enough so that they can see it if they're, whether it's in person or on a Zoom meeting presentation. With a layout that has different levels, where someone might put their bullet points for their presentation and they hit an insert and then there's an indentation, it changes the level. And the way that's indicated will be with a smaller font size. So I may not want that for my presentation. And so I have the option to go in now. I can highlight the words that are there, and I can actually change the font size by right-clicking. So I'm going to select 24. And I would do that for each level. See here, I'm highlighting this section. Actually, I'm not even right-clicking. It pops up as I highlight it. So I'm going to correct that. And I'm going to go ahead and change all of these to a larger font so that each level still is visible for someone with low vision. And the last one here. Okay, so that means I have made adjustments to 5 different levels. And so anything that has levels in it for the content would be adjusted. Now, what if you wanted to customize one of those layouts? What if this is the, I think this is the section header. So what if you have a couple of different sections in your PowerPoint slide deck and you want to have them divided by a transition slide? That's what a section heading type layout would be for. So if you wanted to indicate that there's a change coming up by changing the background color, you could do that. We're in the slide master tab. And so anything I change here will affect the layout of this particular slide layout. So we're not going to change the background of all the other slides, just this one. And so here I'm going to go ahead and pick the darkest background that I have available for this color theme. You can also just change the color of the words so that the contrast is sharper by highlighting it, and then just change here on the toolbar that popped up when I highlighted it, just change that. It won't change the color of all the other slides font, just this particular slide layout. So I've done that. Now, I want to make sure that I save the name of that. Since I have redesigned this, I'm going to rename that layout so that when I go to look for it, when I'm creating it, I just need to look for this MOAT slide layout. So I've saved that. So now when I hover over it, it says MOAT layout. So that's my customized slide. You can also customize the slide by changing the layout of the placeholders. Placeholders are these little boxes. As I tap on them, this is a title placeholder. Here's a content placeholder. Down here is a footer placeholder. That's a date placeholder. And then this probably is a page number placeholder. All of these things you have to insert your information in through a placeholder. Otherwise, a screen reader will not read the content. If you change the layout of these placeholders, you will have to check the reading order. And so that's what I want to demonstrate for you now. Again, we're in Slide Master. So this is if you're creating a customized layout that you may use over and over and over again. So here I'm going to just be creative and think through, maybe I want to have one of these content placeholders that allows me to insert a photo. And I'm just going to move that over. And then I'm going to insert a new placeholder layout. Here's a little drop down arrow. When I make that selection, it gives me several different types of placeholders that I could insert. So I just need to make a choice of what I want. And if I'm just putting in text, I can select that placeholder. And it gives me little crosshairs. I don't know if you can see that on your end, but I can either tap it and draw it out like this, or I could have drawn it out. And so here I've done that. And I just want this small little box. I don't need all of that. All right. And some other things I might want to do, I might want to, maybe this is a section where I'm presenting with other organizations. And so I want to brand my slide with our logo. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to remove this footer and I'm going to go ahead and now I'm in Slide Master. So this is the layout I'm modifying. I'm going to insert our logo. And you can, just like you're creating a regular slide, drag that wherever you want. I'm just going to put it down here at the bottom. But now I've inserted an image. And so one of the things I mentioned at the very beginning is anything that you insert or copy and paste that's not a placeholder, you have to add an alternative text. So I'm right clicking on the image. And for most software versions in PowerPoint, this is how you would do it. And you'd scroll up, and for older versions, you might have to go into the format picture option here. This is a drop-down menu. I'm not talking about what's on the ribbon because that's 2019. So you can see that option up there. But on this drop-down menu, when I right-click, it says format picture, size and position. And then on this version, there's edit alt text there. But in the older versions, you would go through format picture, and there's a couple other clicks that you need to take to get to the alt text. 2019 is a whole lot easier. So you can select here, or if I tap on up here on the ribbon once, it says alternative text. And so it gives me a new pane that opens up on the right side. It gives me a box to type in the description of what this image is as it pertains to my PowerPoint slide. In this case, it's just a logo. So I'm going to type Moat logo. And that's all I would need to do for a logo. If it was something I was inserting that was just decorative, like a line to break up content would be an example, there is an option to just mark as decorative. And that's important if it's not necessarily needing to be discovered. Screen reading software will then just pass by it. But if it is an image, it will call it out as an image, and then it will read the alternative text that is inserted into the background of the photo like we're doing here. So in this case, it would say Moat logo. So I'm going to close that box. Okay, so now all of that is set up the way I like it, but I've customized this layout from how Microsoft originally created it. So I need to now check the reading order. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm still in Slide Master View. You see this tab still open, but I'm going to go to the Home tab. And on the ribbon, it says Drawing, and I'm going to select Arrange. And I'm going to go down to the bottom where it says Selection Pane. Excuse me, I'm going to cough 1 second. So the reading order for a person of vision, we're looking from top to bottom when we read. With the screen reading software, it reads bottom to top. And so that's what we're seeing over here on the selection pane. Excuse me. On the bottom, we have title number 1. That's the placeholder. As I tap on that on the selection pane, it highlights the placeholder on the slide. Highlighting meaning that the box kind of pops open a little bit, pops out. So that's the first thing I want to have read, and that's correct in both orders, for visual reading order and for the reading pane, selection pane reading order for the screen reader. The second thing I tap on is the placeholder number 3, and that's correct. The third thing that I tap on the selection pane is the date placeholder, and that's out of order. The next thing is the slide number placeholder, and that's out of order. And then the text placeholder, and then the picture, which is our logo. So we need to get those things back in order. I'm sorry. So how do we do that? The third thing that we want to make sure is in place above this content placeholder is the text placeholder number 8. So we can either drag that down with our mouse, or we can use the up and down arrows here. So if I select down, then it is on top of the content placeholder. So we're going in the right direction. The next thing I want it to be is the picture or the logo. So I'm going to use the drop, the down arrow. The next thing should be the date, and then the slide number. So I think it's pretty much in order. We're going to tap it through again just to double check, and we can always make changes if it's not correct. And everything is great. Okay, so that's how you use the selection pane to make sure that the reading order is from bottom to top, matching the top to bottom reading order on when you visually look at the slide. And then I'm going to close this. Now remember, I'm in Slide Master, so I need to go back to that tab and close out of Slide Master if I'm done, so that everything is saved. Now I'm in the place where I can actually start creating a slide. So I'm going to begin by adding this title to my title slide layout. And if I start creating slides, we're going to go to this ribbon section that says slides. You're going to pull it from the new slide option. There's a little arrow that drops down, and that will open up all the layouts. So you've just finished creating all of these. You've picked the design, you've picked the font, and we have our custom slides that are in there. One I named Moats, that's colored for the section divider. And then the two content layout that we reconfigured, we customized, and that wasn't renamed, but we could have renamed that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a new slide with just a basic content one, and I'm going to add now an alt text example. We're going to insert a picture here. As if you were to insert any other picture, that's how you would add things, or you can copy and paste it. It's the same now. However, what's different is you have to add an alternative text to that. So just like we did with the logo, you want to find your alt text option, select that, and then add something in the text box for your alternative text. Now it needs to be meaningful. Here I have a picture of a dog on the floor next to a person that's on the floor with them. The dog has a collar and a leash, and then there's also a handle that's connected to the collar. So now this could be a dog show presentation, and I might be talking about the breed of the animal. And so that might be what I put in the alternative text, something that's particular to that. Maybe it's that this breed can go into working as service animals. Maybe this is about how to treat service animals when you're interacting with an individual with a disability. My alternative text would then need to be particular to that purpose of the presentation. Or maybe this is just about a dog that's tired and laying on the floor and it's about aging animals would be maybe an example of a presentation. So whatever it is applicable to, that is the meaning of your content that you're adding in alternative text. So I hope that makes sense. In this case, we're going to say service animal taking a break from work. And you can add one more sentence if you like. For now, this is adequate for this presentation. So now we have alternative text inserted in the file. If I was to start a new, let's pick our custom made one. Say I want to do an alternative text demonstration again for you. I'm going to go ahead and put a title in there. And I'm going to insert a picture. And let's see, this case. I'm going to insert a Valentine's. In this case, there's a lot going on this image. This is an old-fashioned Valentine with 4 different images. These old-fashioned Valentines are made to be cut in 4s, and then you can write your name on it and you can hand it out to your friends. And usually it's used by school children. So it is a fun craft thing to do at home before they pass out their Valentines. That's a lot to say in an alternative text, but it's more meaningful than just calling it Valentine's. Excuse me. So in this case, I'm going to say Valentine. From past school days for the purpose of this demonstration, to keep it short for you. But that makes you kind of understand the complexity of describing an image with alternative text, but it needs to be meaningful. All right, so what if we have 2 slides here that have duplicate titles, and I wonder if our accessibility checker will find that. So I'm going to go into the backstage, into the info section, check for issues. I'm going to select check accessibility. And sure enough, it did. When I tap on the tip, it gives me duplicate slide title information. It tells me slide 3 is a duplicate of another slide. So you just need to modify the name if you like that name. Alt text. I would stay away from like part 2, part 3, or continued. That can be a theme that I see in presentations. It should be a unique name that makes sense for somebody that's trying to search for it. So alternative text for complicated images. All right. Now, what if you did not want the title to show for some reason? Then here's how you handle that. Let's pick this title. I can hide this title placeholder. I have to have that in place for the screen reader to pick it up, but I can hide it if I don't want it visible. How I do that is go in the Home tab, go to the Arrange option on the drawing tools, open the selection pane, and I just find that little eye on the title and tap it, and now it's closed. The eye is closed. That means it's not visible anymore on the slide. And that's all I need to do. It's still there. The screen reader will read it. However, for my visual presentation, it's hidden. So, all right, let's go to another slide. One other thing I want to share with you is about grouping images. So in terms of alternative text. So again, we're going to go back to the service animal. Let me change this up here for you. What if you didn't want to insert an image? You wanted to insert smart art and graphs, things that are already pre-made. You could do that. I'm opening Choose Smart Graphic, and I'm looking at the process flow options, and I'm opening up a repeating process flow chart. So it has about 9 or 10 different components or images on it, all in one. So it's actually one whole unit, but there's several pieces in it. So that's pre-made for me. But one of the nice things about PowerPoint is it's a very creative source of work. So if you wanted to make your own by inserting smart art, you could do that. And so I'm going to just go ahead and delete that current placeholder there. And I'm going to go to the Insert tab. And I'm going to find Smart Art and open that. I'm sorry, not Smart Art, Shapes, because we've already used Smart Art. I'm going to insert my own shapes to make a process flow chart. And maybe instead of wanting it to be a complicated flow chart like this is, I want to simplify something for the purpose of my presentation. So maybe what I'm saying is that things are set up now very complicated. There's a lot of steps, but I can break it down into 3 steps for you. So this would be maybe what my created design means. What it also means from accessibility is now I have 3 pieces that I've inserted that I have to make. I have to add alt text to, so I can do that individually. But what if this was the piece that had 9 or 10 components? And so that's a lot of accessible work to do for really one concept that you just designed. So this is what I propose you do, is group them. Go back to the Home tab, and under the Arrange option, there you can group objects. You see where it says group object. So I'm going to get out of that. And how you do that, you're going to use 2 hands. One will be on the mouse and one will be holding down the Control key. So you do that now. I'm doing that now, holding down the Control key, and I'm tapping on the 3 images. And you may not see this on your end, but underneath my cursor is a little plus sign that lets me know that it's grabbing things and it's combining them. They're all 3 highlighted, though. I think you can see that. My mouse is, my other hand is still holding down the Control key. I open up the Arrange option and select Group. Now I can let go of the Control key. And now everything is one piece. It's no longer 3 separate ones. And now I can go ahead and add my alt text to this image. And I'm calling it Creative Simple Flowchart. All right, so both of them now have alternative text. I only had to do it one time for both of them. So much easier. The other thing is if I'd have put any content without the placeholder, see now this is all joined into one placeholder, it might not have been discoverable by a screen reader if it was content. And if it didn't have an alt text, it would not be discoverable either to understand what's there. It would just say image. So those things make it accessible. All right, so let's now, I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to go back into our presentation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about hyperlinks. I'm going to leave this open here for a minute. With a hyperlink, it's usually something that you've grabbed out of a internet browser. So it's a website. I'm going to open this link here. So this takes us to our YouTube channel. So this is, you can't see probably what I'm doing because I didn't share this, but I'm opening up the internet browser because I want to copy the link. And then I'm going to come back into, now you can see where I'm at. So I'm going to insert or copy and paste that internet address for our YouTube channel. So the proper way to add a hyperlink to a PowerPoint is the first thing that's shown there in that active placeholder. And that is, it has a meaningful text description, and then the hyperlink has been added to that meaningful text. And this is the hyperlink that is added. So which one would be easier for someone to understand where it's going to take them? Most likely the one that says the MOAT YouTube channel. It lets them know right away that they're going to go to the website for our YouTube channel. The other one, it doesn't necessarily let us know that it's Missouri Assistive Technologies YouTube channel. It may give them some idea they're going to YouTube, but they don't know what channel. So it's valuable and informative if you use meaningful text to attach your hyperlink to. So that makes it a electronic or digital accessible file. It's an active link, so it's clickable, and it's describing where they're going. So that's what the screen reader will read out loud. So this we will then remove because this is the most effective. If you're doing a presentation, there's multiple purposes with a PowerPoint file, is you can also print it off and hand it out for folks that are reading printable handouts. And a long website address will be hard to reproduce and type into the internet browser. So, but we want to be able to give that option since it could be used as a handout. So one of the options you might consider is using the Bitly website. They have a shortening tool that will shorten that long website into something that's easier to retype back in the browser. And this is what I came up with. And you can just place those two together on your slideshow. So I'm going to do that now. And that's probably all you would need for your PowerPoint presentation. So I hope that makes sense. So we're meeting the need of the digital electronic accessibility component to make it clickable and to make it meaningful so they know where it's going. And then we're also allowing someone that is getting a handout in writing to then go back to their computer or smart device and retype that website address that's shortened for them. Now, with PowerPoint presentations, videos are often used. And many times people will go to the websites and show it on the internet. But if you wanted to insert a video, like I mentioned earlier, you have to caption that. And so this is how you do it. I'm going to delete this and start from scratch. Here we have, this is a content placeholder. And so in those where you have multiple options to put something in that placeholder, you can see it says you can insert a video here. So select that. And you would have to have the video already on your hard drive. And here I do, it's an MP4 file. So I'm going to select that. And it's automatically inserted. It shows options down below to play. And it also has a time counter here, timekeeper. So that's smooth to be able to insert something like that very quickly, but it's not accessible yet. When you, in the later versions of the Microsoft PowerPoint, like this one is 2019, it allows you to add captions. And how you know that you're able to do that with your PowerPoint file is after you've inserted the video, this playback button pops up, or a tab pops up. So I'm opening that. And there's a bunch of tools you can use to edit your video. There is also a option on the ribbon that says insert captions. And if you can see that, this is most likely something you're able to do on your version of Microsoft PowerPoint. I'm going to open that up and it gives me the drop down option and it says insert captions. Now I've already made the captions for this with the timestamps. And so you have to have that ready, and it has to be a VTT file, a video track transcript or something like that. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name exactly, but it's a specific type of file. It's VTT. You also have to name it with the dot extension here that says what the language is. And so this particular transcript is in English, so it's the file name, which I have labeled as accessibility. So dot, and then the extension is EN for English. And I'm going to select open. I have to select the file, insert. And so now the captions are inserted in there. And I'm going to now see if we can play this for you. I'm going to open this into the slideshow version. And I'd like you to be able to see how the captions work once it's inserted into video in PowerPoint.
Is it time? How much time is left? What time is it? But how much longer do I have?
Hello, this is Scout with Missouri Assistive Technology. And if you or someone that you're helping is struggling with staying on task or struggling to know how much time you have left to do something, there are some supports made by Time Timer Company. So this is the original Time Timer, and it has a little stand on the bottom. And to set the...
Is it time yet?
Okay, I just meant to interrupt it and not show the whole video, but that's how it works. And let me escape out of the slideshow version. All right, so going forward and working in a PowerPoint file, make sure that you review your work before you end up using it. So you can do this in a couple ways. You can have your accessibility checker open the whole time you're working, or you can run it at the end. And then check each slide for the reading order using the selection pane. If you know that you've made changes, it's helpful to double check all the slides. If you didn't make any changes to the layout itself, like where the placeholders are located, and the title, if you move them around a lot, this is when you're going to use that selection pane for each slide that you created. And I'm going to jump back up to the top of my bullet points. My best tip really for you is before you begin, set up everything in Slide Master. Do it one time. It's really most effective. Your font will be consistent. You've got your color choices already set up, and you've got the layout of the slides already set up. So all you have to enter then when you're creating the slideshow is putting the content in and adding all text and making sure it's accessible. We have some resources for you on this slideshow. The World Wide Web Consortium has a presentation on making accessible PowerPoints. WebAIM has a great section on PowerPoints, and that will cover different versions of Microsoft software. Of course, Microsoft is a definite go-to place to look at. They have a whole accessibility section on their website. And then download the color contrast analyzer if you're interested in learning more about the ratios of color combinations and how they rate, in terms of fair and good. But that is it for our presentation. I want to again thank you for sticking with us and learning more about how to make a PowerPoint file accessible. Microsoft has come a long way. I really respect the work that they've done in building accessible software. And so work with the tools that they have, use the templates that they've designed, and you'll be in much better shape. And again, thank you so much for being here today, and keep up the work on accessibility. It matters.